Hello! So today I will be giving to you Brat book recommendations, like Hot Girl, Red Girl, Summer. I think people were saying, even though if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, you're not in summer anymore by the time you're seeing this video. And I'm also not in summer. Well, everybody was like, oh, Brat Summer, I was in Brat Winter. And now it's spring. But we are going to do this video anyway. By the way, because I am nothing but too honest for my own good, I need to disclaim that I'm not the biggest fan of the Brat album, just because I just don't really listen to it. I think the songs I listen to it the most were 365 and Apple, and I just don't listen that much to it. I think because also I'm not really that much of a target audience for this album, because I'm not a Brat. When you say Brat to me, the first thing that comes to my mind, it's not the album, it's the Bratz doll and the Bratz video game that I loved playing as a child. Also, I think I'm a little bit too type A to be a Brat, but I think I have some books here that fit this vibe of Brat. By the way, if you don't know what Brat is, the dictionary definition for Brat is a child, typically a badly behaved one. But according to Charlie XCX, the definition of the Brat from her album, it is reading here directly from today.com. You are just like that girl who is a little messy and likes to party and maybe says some dumb things sometimes, who feels herself but maybe also has a breakdown, but kind of like parties to read, is very honest, very blunt, a little bit volatile. I definitely am very honest, occasionally very blunt. I'm just not going to spend the whole night in a party and party through stuff, because I'm just too type A, and personally I prefer to stay home reading. I'm an introvert. But let's get to the book recommendations. In the order that we'll be giving to recommendations are, first we have the classics, then we have the historical fiction. I'm looking at the list here, by the way. Then we have a literary horror, we have a few coming of age stories / literary fiction, and then we'll finish with romance. Now, let's start by the classics. The first one, it is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. So in this book we follow Esther, and she's currently interning at this fashion magazine in New York, and she's also suffering some mental health struggles in the 60s. And the reason why I think this book is very Brat coded is because Esther, she's not very likable most of the time, but she likes to party, she says some dumb stuff, as Charlie XX would say. She's not the best behaved person. I think Esther, she's very much Brat coded. The second book on my list is The Beautiful and Then by F. Scott Fitzgerald. In this book we follow Anthony and Gloria. Anthony, he is the heir to this very big fortune that belongs currently to his grandfather, but he hopes to inherit it after his grandfather dies. And then we have Gloria, who is the daughter of a Kansas City businessman, and they decide to get married. This book, by the way, takes place in the 1910s New York, and it is basically a critique of cafe society. But in this book, Anthony, he doesn't want to work. He openly says he's not the type of guy that will be working. He's living off the inheritance his mother left him, and he and Gloria, they're just counting the days until the moment he has access to his grandfather's money. And they just like living this life of privilege, of non-stop partying, and from the outside everything seems perfect. They seem like it's a very wealthy couple, very happy, but on the inside, and slowly cracks starts to show through, they are living above their means, they are having marital problems, one of them is drinking way too much alcohol, and it is a really interesting book. I think the themes on this book, it is interesting. They are very important for our current time frame of history. And the reason why I think this book is Brat coded is because Anthony and Gloria, they are really into partying. They say some dumb stuff. And in general, they are just not that well behaved. They are kind of messy. Now let's move on to the literary fiction. I need to move this pile here. Our next literary fiction is not one book. We have 4 books, which I think anytime you give me a chance to recommend you a book, I will recommend these books because they are my favorite books ever. They kind of changed my life as a reader. I just love them that much. I think they are that good, and I think I'm not the only one, considering they were, at least one of them was elected the best book of the 21st century by New York Times, and it is My Brilliant Friend and basically the My Brilliant Friends series, basically the Neapolitan series by Elena Ferrante. And in these 4 books, I love these covers. In these books, we follow Elena and Lila, and they live in this poor neighborhood in Naples. And in this series, we follow them. It starts around, I think, 1940s, late 1940s, right after the Second World War, and then we follow them from childhood until they are in their 60s. And this book basically, it explores girlhood, it explores growing up, it explores the female friendship and what it is like to be a woman in general, especially at this time frame in Italy. And these books, they are just so amazing. No matter what I say, nothing will make justice to this book. I have to make a can clean it. Some of them really show how much love I have for these books. But the reason why I think this book is Brad is because these girls are messy, you know. They're very messy. And sometimes they act kind of dumb. They decide to party through stuff or basically ignore all the red flags. And they're very much Brad. But these books are amazing. And if there is one book in this whole list that you need to read, that you haven't read yet, and that you need to read, it is the My Brilliant Friend series. Trust me, this series is just so good. The story is good, the pacing is good, the writing is good. There is also a TV series that was made by HBO in partnership, I think, with Rai, and that series just so amazing. I could go on and on and on about the series because it is just so amazing. There are so many nuances and little things, little touches that are about these books. I think it has the perfect casting, by the way. The casting, it's exactly how I picture these characters in my mind, and just so many nuances that really encapsulates a moment in time and the realities. And yeah, let me stop rambling because I truly, these books, like, they're amazing. They are truly amazing. They are some of the best books I have ever read in my life, and I have been reading for over 20 years. And this is the kind of book that I want to shove down everyone's throat. Anyone that asks me for one book recommendation, this is the books I will recommend because they are just amazing. Now let's move on to the next book because we are rambling. We have a Kindle here. So the next book is also Elena Ferrante because she's just an amazing author, and it is The Lying Life of Adults. And this is a book, honestly, I don't remember much of it. I read it right after it came out. I think it was 2019, late 2019, early 2020s. And in this book, basically, we follow a young girl. Her parents take a divorce. She also overhears her parents say some kind of not very nice stuff about her, make some not very nice comparisons. There is also her father also has an strange relationship with his sister, and that's a whole part of the plot. And just like My Brilliant Friend, this book takes place in Naples, but it is more of a middle-class Naples. And this girl, she is very much Brat. She is kind of messy, but this is also a book I think I need to reread because, again, I read it a long time ago, And I remember even when I was reading it back in the day, I was reading it and feeling like there were so many things going over my head. So also this is a recommendation that take with a pinch of salt, because I just need to reread it. But from what I remember, she's very much Brat. Next historical fiction is City, of course, by Elizabeth Gilbert, and this book takes place in 1930s, early 1940s. It was started right before the Second World War, and we follow a woman, I forgot her name right now. Let me see if I can find it. Vivian. And she gets expelled from Vassar College because she's rebellious, she's a party girl, she's very much a brat, and she goes to live with her aunt in New York. Her aunt owns a theater, and she gets exposed to this world of theater and the nightlife of New York at the time. Just the premise of the book is she's very much a brat. And this is Syria, of course. By the way, I'm going to turn on the overhead lights because I'm not sure how it is looking at the camera. I need to check it out later. But it is kind of dark, but it is not dark enough that I can see and that the camera can't film, but it is getting dark, and I think I'm going to turn on the lights, and the lighting's video won't get that great. Okay, I think I can talk again. We have Bunny by Mona Awa. This is a more of a literary horror, very weird girl fiction. This book, it is kind of hard to describe because it is one you need to read to understand. It's kind of like dark academia, toxic friendship, code stuff, but basically in this book we follow Samantha, and she's studying this literary MFA program at a prestigious fancy college in New England. And basically in one of her classes at this MFA program, there is this group of girls who they are really close friends. They kind of dress the same and they call each other Bunny. And one day they invite Samantha to join them in one of their little get-togethers, and it is weird. And I don't think a book can get more Brat than this. It's kind of difficult. It's kind of difficult to explain what Bunny is, because it is just so weird, but personally I really enjoyed it. And I think these characters are very much Brat, and they get more Brat coded as the book goes along. Now let's move on. Oh, Belchar is here. Now let's move on to the next book. This one, full disclaimer, I personally don't like this book, but I know a lot of people do, so I don't know. If you have similar tastes to me, maybe you won't enjoy it, but also maybe you will because so many people love it. And it is Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. In this book, we follow Ifemelu and Obinze. They are from Nigeria, and basically they start dating when they are, I think, teenagers. But then Ifemelu moves to the United States for college, while Obinze, he stays back in Nigeria. And they end up parting ways, but then they end up reconnecting later in the future, and this book's basically their journey of growing up. It's basically a coming of age story, also a love story. And the reason why I think this book is Brat is because Ifemelu, she's very Brat, she's very messy. And I think some people who enjoyed it will say, oh, this is like growing up. It is an interesting story. Personally, one of the reasons why I did enjoy this book is because Ifemelu is such a Brat. I think she was just so unlikable to the point where it kind of ruined the book for me. She does some things that very questionable and that I just didn't enjoy reading, but she is Brat. But let's move on to another book because I just don't enjoy Americana. Let's go for The New Me. It's a book I enjoy a little bit more. Not that much, so also I gave it 3 stars, but this doesn't mean this is a bad book. But in The New Me, we follow Millie. She's basically working as a temporary receptionist at this high-end design firm. And the thing about Millie is that on the outside, the way she acts towards other people, she is very passive, very passive. But on the inside, when we find out that she's suffering from depression, so this book does talk about mental health, and she's just also very chaotic. She's very much of a Brat. So that's why I decided to add it to this list. Now let's move on to the romance section. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. The first one is Daisy Hates by Jessa Hastings. And this book follows Daisy. She's the little sister of a big gang lord. And this book, by the way, it's part of the Magnolia Parks universe. It's technically the second one in the series. It just follows the same timeline as the first book, the Magnolia Parks book, but from the POV of Daisy. And basically in this book, Daisy is having a no strings attached relationship with Julian. Julian is her brother. That would be weird. She's having a no strings attached relationship with Christian, who is also part of another big crime family in the UK. The reason why I think this book is bad is because Daisy is so messy. She ping-pongs through boys and through what she decides to do, and leaves a chaos behind her. So she's very much a brat in the sense. She doesn't necessarily dress like a brat because she's very wealthy and she only wears designer clothes, but she's chaotic, which I think it's what encapsulates this vibe of the brat girl. The next book is King of Pride by Anna Huang. This is the second book in the King of Sins series. King of Pride, we follow Kai and Isabella. Kai, he's this very proper goody two shoes heir to a big media empire. And Isabella, she is the bartender at this exclusive club he's part of, and she's very chaotic. He always ends up overhearing her say some 18 plus stuff, and just like Daisy, she tends to leave a trail of mess around her, and I think this encapsulates Brat vibes. Next we have Twisted Hate, which is also by Anna Huang. It is the fourth book from the Twisted series. Just like with King of Pride, it is a part of an interconnected standalone romance novel series, so you don't necessarily need to read the first books in the series or read the series in order to understand what is going on. So in Twisted Hate, we follow Jules and Josh. Jules, she's an aspiring lawyer, and Josh is an aspiring doctor, and they hate each other. This is an enemies to lovers story, and they are forced to work together because they end up going to work at the same non-profit, and from there on they decide to call a truce on their rivalry, and this truce ends up becoming a heated love affair. The Twisted series is very much beloved by the book talk community. I also really enjoyed reading it. It is, I think, perfect for fans of soap operas, more specifically telenovelas. It's just so dramatic and over the top. Personally, out of all of them, I think Twisted Hate is my least favorite because, like, I will still recommend because Jules, she's a mess. And Josh also. Josh, he's a party boy, but Jules, she's also a party girl. She's chaos, very brat behavior. The reason why, going back, right, I think Twisted Hate is my least favorite from the series, it's even lower than Twisted Love, is just because this book was going so well, and then we have the third act breakup, and then the third act breakup for me was, I'm surprised they got back together. But overall, out of all the Twisted books, I think this is the most brat because these two, they love to party, they are chaotic. They are the messy kind of chaotic. Now let's move on to the next book on the list, and this is one that I remember enjoying it when I first read it. I have heard mixed reviews about it in more recent years, I think in part because of the FMC's behavior, but I think that's what makes her a brat. And this book is basically To Hate Adam Connor by Ella Mays. This is technically the second book in a duology, the first book being To Love Jason Thorne, and the second is this one, To Hate Adam Connor, but you don't really need to read the first one to understand what is going on in this book. So in this book we follow Lucy. She was recently living with her boyfriend with whom she recently broke up, and because of that she ends up going to live with her best friend, who happens to be married to a famous Hollywood actor, and she's living in their house, and next door to him moves in Adam Connor, who is this Academy Award winning actor. He's very famous, very good looking, and he moves into the house next door with his son. And Lucy, I think that's where a lot of people not enjoying this book comes from, because she kind of becomes a glorified stalker. She likes looking at him through the fence, which I would consider very much bad behavior, by the way. Don't stalk people. We don't condone stalking in this channel. But going back, into Hate Adam Connor, Lucy, while she is looking through the fence and kind of spying on Adam, she ends up witnessing his little son falling into the pool and starting to drown, so she just jumps over the wall and saves this child. But when Adam first sees her, he kind of naturally thinks she's trying to kidnap his child, and she ends up being arrested. But then, fast forward a few days, she was released because the misunderstanding was resolved. And Adam's kid, he keeps begging him to go and visit and stay with the lady that saved his life. And because he's trying to look for a new nanny, and the kid seems to really like her company, and also he knows Jason, who is the guy, the actor with whom she's living with and who is married to her best friend. He asks her to look after his child one day, and from then on they start to become closer and closer and closer. And this is a romance novel, so you know, in classic rom-com, they fall in love and have a happy ever after. And the reason why I think this book fits the Brat threshold is, again, because Lucy's just so chaotic. I know that's one of the reasons why a lot of people don't enjoy this book. It's because she's just so chaotic. And she literally starts the book by being chaotic and having questionable behaviors and doing stupid shit. But now let's move on to the next book and the final book in this book recommendations video. The final book I have to recommend for you today, and that is Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. This is kind of like that book that everyone and their mother have seen their cover of this book. Anyone who likes reading, I think, have heard about this book, or at least seen the cover of this book in a bookstore. But basically, Icebreaker, it is a rom-com. We follow Anastasia, she's a figure skater, and then we have Nate, he's the captain of the hockey team of the college they are going to. And the hockey rink in this college ends up having a technical problem, so the hockey team starts training in the figure skaters rink. And there is some drama between the figure skaters and the hockey players, but it's a rom-com. Stacy, as they call her, Anastasia, and Nate, they start getting closer, and then they fall in love and have a happily ever after. The reason why this book, I think, fits the Brat threshold is because I think I talked about it in my review of this book. I'm pretty certain I talked about it in my review of this book, but Anastasia doesn't wear underwear to clubs or college parties. That's messy. That's very much Brat behavior, and in general, they're kind of messy. I will use this as a reason to add this book to my Brat book recommendations. And that's all the books I have to recommend for you today. If you have any book that you think fits this Brat mold, please let me know in the comment section. And if you like this video, consider leaving a like and subscribe to the channel so you can get new bookish and fashion related videos on your subscription box, and I hope to see you very soon. Bye!